Yeah, if they're outside the shoreline, so they're dancing off.
Yeah.
Down to all four leaves.
Yeah.
Can you turn on your?
Have some of this volume levels pushed way up.
That's not right.
Am I on?
Hang on. So I think. Because I had to shut the volume on the YouTube. Should be.
That's Zoom. Is that pretty neat to do?
That's where I want to be. Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Hang on.
That's what I'm verified.
Are we good? I think so.
I think so.
I think so.
Okay, we're gonna try it. Okay, I'm called to order the Burnett County Land Use and Information Committee meeting for November 4th, 2025, after a bit of a pause. Notice has been posted in code on. Linked out. Actually, no. I'll have to shout,
Is it not working?
no. No light.
You use the other one right here? Yeah, you can use that one.
This one's on. This one working?
Yep, that one is.
Oh, I didn't hold it down long enough, I guess. All right.
Tanya, Craig is
Even the
Craig is
buttons are
coming
not
through really
cooperating
loud
today,
and
right?
clear.
Okay,
It
notice
is
is,
coming in loud and clear, sorry.
Yes, Craig is coming in really loud and clear.
Perfect, thank you.
notice has been posted in accordance with Wisconsin statute 19.84 open meetings law. At this time for public comments, if anyone is here wishing to address an item not on the agenda. Seeing none, we'll continue to a motion to approve the agenda order.
Make a motion to approve the agenda order.
Supervisor Moyer, is there a second?
I'll second.
Supervisor Samansky, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
I think the mic might have shut off again or something. Yeah.
See if I can hold it down long enough.
Yeah.
Okay, it's on again. Somebody wave at me when it goes dead, right? Approval of the minutes from the October 7th, 2025 meeting. Motion is in order.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Motion by Supervisor Blomberg. Is there a second?
I'll say.
Supervisor Tucker got it, I think, by a pair. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
I will get some new batteries.
Yep.
Okay. So, at this point, we have on the agenda, a discussion of the West Point Campground. Which we put that on the agenda simply because, well, of course, they could have had their 3 minutes for some discussion. Mr. McCann's been, active in a lot of things and helped us correct a lot of deficiencies out there from the past. And we didn't give him an opportunity to discuss what his plans are for the campground. There are some issues that I think Mark Krause will then go over and we'll talk about it for a few minutes. And that way, when we do public comments, we don't react because we can't discuss it. This gives us the opportunity to do that. So take it away, Mark.
Puzzle top. I'll just drop off. West Point Campground, we went through many things. We first looked at got approved condos and went back to the campground and gone through things. Buzz has updated many things, worked with Jason, correcting things and so forth. We didn't have any papers in your packet, I don't believe. So what I'm going to hand out first is just a simple campground map, but basically their hand drawn showing what's there. And then this is the county website showing things. And you'll see all the lakes shore and the docks, the campgrounds through here. I apologize about the poor picture. And you can also see the tight lines, how steep it is in areas out there. And so what we're looking to do is and I'll show you, we were looking to create 3 lots for the existing cabins and keep the campground as a whole. It's a very unique piece of property. It's limited. It's got setbacks on the lake on a peninsula on 2 sides, which is 75 feet wide. It's got road setback, which is 66-foot road plus the 30-foot setback. It's 99. So out of 17 acres, there's less than 9. It's the actual developable area. And that's where all the conundrum comes in as far as what we can do, because that puts us below the threshold of even creating the campground the size it is now without taking anything away from it. So we don't know which direction to go. So
Right, can I just ask where this is located?
It's in the town of Scott on Big McKinsey Lake.
Okay, thank you.
No, I don't.
My name is Harold McCann. My wife and I, Diane, have owned West Point Lodge for approximately 10 years. And we're basically in our 70s now, looking at getting out of it. It's way too much work. So as far as it goes, we've been trying to update everything, plumbing, electrical, septics, the whole 9 yards. We worked with zoning and Jason over, I think, numerous issues and corrected all those. And what we'd like to do right now is to get an acreage variance if we could. Because our 17 acres is turned into less than 7 if we develop the top 3 lots. Even with the setbacks of 75 and 40 feet, we can meet all those with the existing campground. But we can't meet it for the new rules. It lowers the campsites down significantly to less than half. So like I say, we're looking for a variance on that. And anything we can do to work with the committee and zoning, we're willing to do as we've done for the 10 years. And hopefully you'll consider that.
So this is what we went to Jason with. We were looking to create the 3 lots around the existing cabins and lodge up there. So that could be separated separately. And then Jason mentioned the only way we could recommend doing this because we create the campground would be taken away from the campground. And so the area would change. And so with that, then we look to see what could be done with the area. Now here's a rough drawing. In the bottom corner, this is a net developable area. And we did not even include the 20% slope in this area. And that's about 1.5 acres. And the lots that we showed you on the top for the 3 lots up above is about 2 acres. This is a copy of the campground that was as it was approved with the boxes. And you can see we've overlaid and been out there and shot up the roads, which come through the campsites. Of course, the boxes are not what's there. What you see in the picture is what's there. You know, the aerial photo. The campers are not all square and boxed in a line. They follow the drainage and follow the wetland areas and so forth. But accurately on this drawing I just gave you, it basically shows the roads are there. We located the well areas, and then we located all the water spigots and things like that are there, little dots on there. That was just preliminary work, but then we got talking to Jason. We need to go to RRC for his recommendation. We didn't have enough area to accommodate for the 50 units because your new rules say you have to have 5 developable acres per campsite. We have 50 sites out there. And so we need 10 acres minimum just to keep the existing campground. We didn't have it to start with when it was created. So that's where we're stuck at, you know, and the campground infrastructure, so forth is all in. East Stoner and Hopkins, when they put the septics in and the wells, we've got maps of that too. The wetland delineation was done by Marty Shutt in 2018. So all these things have all been done. So everything's in order and so forth. So we're just stuck in a thing we don't meet the size requirements of the new rules, so.
What we have is it's all legal non-conforming, right? Exactly, and then the conundrum is, you know, it's not an expansion of anything. And if you were going to strictly do a condominium of the whole thing, it would be perfectly what we've always done in the past. Because condominium's a form of ownership, it's not really a subdivision. But it's sort of a distinction without a difference in a way. I mean, I get what the issue is. Bear in mind, we can't make any decision on this. I think we just want to have an opportunity to look at it and ask questions and see what we might want to do. Jason, would that be a subdivision variance? Or, you know, would it be one that would fall to the land use committee or under the BOA? You know, that's the question I would come up, because, you know, economic hardship is not usually viewed as a hardship for a variance.
That density requirement is not in the subdivision ordinance.
It's in the land use
It's
ordinance.
in the land use ordinance, so I would, if, you know, the standard operating procedure has been subdivision ordinance items go to this committee,
Right.
all other ordinance items go to the BOA.
The reason I was thinking about that, like net usable area, it's not in the subdivision ordinance either. So if that's the case, then it would be an appeal to the BOA to allow the creation of 2 or multiple parcels where otherwise we wouldn't be able to do it within the ordinance.
And that was part of the discussion too, was who better to look, I mean, the BOA doesn't typically deal with those type of rules. They deal with setbacks and size limits, where this is a committee that created that rule. And so, you know, who better than you guys to look at the issues, yeah.
And the intent of the rules was, you know, to deal with new development, not necessarily, that's why everything that was grandfathered in, so to speak, legal nonconformity. It can't expand, but it can stay the way it is forever. That's not an issue. But again, the simple solution would be to do a condominium type of plat, which would not require any oversight beyond the review of the plat.
We understand that too. The issues that come up on that is there's such a large disparity of values out there. And typically in a condominium, to make it work pretty good, is you want everybody being equal or more equal.
Right.
Or the campground. And so here you have the lodge and some cabins versus the campground. And so there's a huge disparity of how you do it. So that's where we found problems with the condominium plat to handle this type of situation.
I get that, because ordinarily, when we've done this and proposed it in other locations, they were able to separate the campground from the resort.
Mhm.
And separate, you know, because there was enough room to do it. But this qualifies on the uniqueness element.
Yeah, it's a very unique building. And if you look at the proposal for the 3 lots, we feel it's not going to increase any density, because the 3 lots would probably be less usage than one to condominium, because there's 6 cabins and 1 lodge there. We're looking for 3 lots, and they can't keep all 4 cabins on that lot. They'd have to reduce them to one usable residence there too. So the 3 lots would actually be less density out there for usage than going condo on it too.
Did you envision, both of you the question, but envision keeping the lodge as a lodge, like a bar and restaurant as it is?
You know, that's been done for a few years now.
Okay.
With the COVID came on, and then the health issue up here has been an issue for the full 10 years. And it got worse during COVID. I think we had 1 person working for us, and
Well, the lodge would sort of be another development.
Just a residence.
it's a residence
Just
now.
residence, yeah.
Okay, well, that reduces activity as well.
Yeah, there was no one, he hasn't run it as a restaurant bar for, you know.
I can remember when, you know, when you put in the ATU there, that was sized for the food service and everything. The high-tech treatment system that has, because of the lack of room in part, and needed to be able to treat high-strength wastewater.
And the kitchen's definitely more than we need.
Oh, yeah, you got way more than you need for a house.
And sort of the lodge, the 4 cabins have a brand new septic, a single septic on there that would serve that lot. And then the lodge has the septic system and so forth, and they have to have an easement because they still pump down below the campground system. So there'd still be some shared uses out there too. And that's part of utilizing the areas they have out there is they've already created the areas where these septics and so forth can go. So it is planned out already. So it's just a matter of how to potentially divide it.
That's my question. So basically that would essentially, it would be an easement issue.
It wouldn't be an issue, it'd just be easements of existing lines.
Right, okay.
Yeah, the capacity of the septics is way beyond what would the future use would be. And
In
looking
the
like,
campground, there'll always be tanks because the water table's too high.
right,
So you've got those 300-gallon
that's in the
tanks,
transfer container.
and those are inspected every year and never a problem.
Well, I've been talking enough. Other committee members have any questions, comments? This is one of those things that is why there are appeal and, variance type of reasons, that it's part of the law. It provides for you considering a unique site. But again, it's not gonna, it doesn't sound like it would come to us either, under the rules that we have.
So you want these 3 lots out? That's gonna be separate?
Yeah, basically, I can try to summarize here for you, I think. So right now, it's a campground with 10 cabins or whatever on there. He essentially wants to chop off 3 lots and just have those be lake lots for a dwelling on each lot. So then it's in fact reducing the overall size of the campground. And then we're running into the issue that he's already, in that he can't meet the density threshold of today's rules for how many units he's allowed per developable acre.
But they're actually not gonna be putting in any more the campers would stay the same right where they are and everything.
But so now you have an ordinance that says you can't have more than 5 campers per developable acre. He doesn't even meet that now. And then you take, 3 acres off. That makes the density even higher. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the conundrum. It's always been non-conforming for area, really, unusable area. But it's been there forever.
You don't see everything. The buffer is all around the outside. They're kind of in the middle of the donut hole, or it's not donut. It's peanut or whatever shape it is there, so it always has been in the same area, basically. There's nothing changed there, and there is, very good
Right.
buffer all the way around it too.
I think I want to be careful about what we do today because it's not an agenda item for a decision,
Sure.
But
We're looking for.
I think it is important for the committee to understand and why. If the remedy is to seek a variance from the BOA, then that would be what you should do.
Then there would be no issue if it wasn't wanting to chop off 3 lots. Cause he could sell it right now to the next person and they could operate it currently as is.
Is there a possibility of double condom, 2 different condominiums, one for the campground, one for the.
Condo is just a form of ownership, so I would think so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because the question is whether the cabins up above fit in the that's a convertible into a lot because they fit better for a lot
No,
than
I
a
can-
condo, but
I
yeah.
can see what you mean about a conflict between a single condo, between a campground use and other use. But it is only a form of use. As long as the parcel remains unsubdivided, I think you could have a sub condo campground and cabin location.
Yeah, I would assume you'd have campground A or condo B, these covenants and rules apply to condo A. These covenants and rules apply to condo B. You might have some overlapping things, sewers or something maybe, but
Separate agreements that
Yes.
aren't part of the condo for
Yep.
use of the life expectancy of the system and
mhm.
the big ATU system theoretically never goes bad, as long as you
Mhm.
take care of it. It's what you would want in an area where there's no other room to do anything. So,
There's no issue with that is the units aren't separated very good up on the top 3 lots. That's what I'm looking for the options.
Question, Mark? Just south of the lodge on the proposed, you got 1 through 6, is that campsites as well?
Yeah, that's campsites.
So we've got a set of 50 and then another little set of 1 through.
No, that's the start 1 through 6.
Oh,
That's 6 of the 6 of the,
Oh, okay,
There's 7.
didn't come out.
Yep, and then 8, 9.
Gotcha.
yeah,
So,
and one got replaced. I think there's a swing set there now, so they pulled out one unit and moved it back.
so
So it says-
why 3 lots instead of 4, having a 4th lot take up the peninsula? Just curious.
There's no buildings on that, and it's part of the campground, so.
Okay.
This one. That one shows 6.
Oh, so that they'd had 75 feet long.
Pretty much the way it's being used right now, we're not gonna change anything.
Okay, yep, I got you.
It may sound, you know, like a double barrel condo, but maybe that is because it allows more flexibility for lake access and whatnot than it might otherwise.
Would that need any review at all, Jason, or just through you?
Just your typical condo, yeah. Technical review, but there's no committee, no administrative approval.
But I guess to summarize it, what I'm hearing is we would be very receptive or have no issues at all with it. Condo, however you need to do it to make it work. If it was 2 separate affiliated condos, but on the same property, no reason it couldn't happen. An appeal would be somewhat perilous because you don't know what, a public hearing to the BOA and trying to find hardship might not happen. And then, because of the rules of what constitutes hardship, that's the only red flag I see on that.
That was questions, the hardship is rule enforced, not anything.
Right, well, what I'm getting at is that all of the issues with that are.
That's every variance though. I
Financial
mean,
hardship.
or a county creates a setback rule for a road and then somebody has to get a variance to reduce it.
But I mean, this changed, they were compliant in the committee's recent ruling, made it non-conforming.
True, but that happens all the time,
Yeah,
so.
Okay.
It happened for, it's an unintended consequence probably, but it is what it is.
Okay.
Good enough.
Okay, thank you for your time. Yeah.
Appreciate your time. Thank you all.
Okay, now we will continue on to our public hearing. My light's still on, good. But Jason, you want to read the publication?
notice of public hearing, State of Wisconsin, County of Burnett, Tuesday, November 4th, 2025 at 9 AM at the Burnett County Government Center, room 165, town of Meeman, Severn, Wisconsin, regarding the following Burnett County Land Use Shoreline Protection Ordinances. Number 1, map amendment MAP 2508 Quimby to rezone the parcels with tax IDs 24163, 24164, 24167, 24168, 24169, 24170, and 24178. Take a breath. With address 12761 Carlberg Road being the northeast quarter, the northwest quarter, the southeast quarter, the northwest quarter, the northeast quarter, the southwest quarter, and the northwest quarter, the southeast quarter, except the east 36 rods or the north 74 rods, all being in section 30, town 37 north, range 18 west, located in the town of Trade Lake. From A exclusive agricultural and RR3 residential recreation to all A2 agricultural residential zoning district, zoning change requested by Thomas Quimby. Number 2, map amendment MAP 2509 American Legion Post 403 to rezone the parcel with tax ID 22971 with address 7634 Main Street, lot 1, block 2, Tyneman's first addition to Danbury, except the west 10 feet thereof, section 28, town 41 north, range 16 west, located in the town of Swiss, from RR1 residential recreation to C1 commercial zoning district, zoning change requested by John Hicks on behalf of American Legion Post 403. Number 3, map amendment MAP 2510 Conlin to rezone the parcel with tax ID 17845 with addresses 28811 County Road H and 2406 Long Lake Road. That part of the southeast quarter, the southwest quarter is described in document number 3000537, section 9, town 40 north, range 14 west, located in the town of Scott, from C1 commercial to RR3 residential recreation zoning district, zoning change requested by Terrence Conlin.
Okay. But first, there's the Quimby rezone. Are they remote?
Yes,
They-
Tom Quimby?
Okay, did that work?
yes,
We can hear
they-
you.
Good.
Okay, definitely having some issues this morning, so, but
Yeah.
good morning, and I think when Jason read that, you can kind of get, so our goal on this is basically to clean up some property lines, and then we have, like I say, my oldest daughter and her husband, I guess that's what drove this to begin with, is yeah, trying to clean some things up, give them the opportunity to start with basically 20 acres that are squared up. So yeah, if anyone has any questions or comments, I guess open.
No, I think you're making it a lot better than it is right now, it looks like to me. And bringing it all into an ag district, which is consistent with the town's plan. So I see nothing but good out of this one. Any committee members have any further questions? So, okay, hearing none, I'm gonna open the public hearing. See if anyone in attendance has any comments on this matter, and I don't think there is. So with that, I will close the public hearing and put this for discussion. Everybody's reviewed this mapping and see what's the end game here.
And you see there's a letter in there from the town of Trade Lake,
Yes.
that they support the request as well. That's in your packet.
A very, very detailed, good letter from Trade Lake that explains what their position is. Any further discussion of any members of the committee? Entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the rezone request.
I'll
Map-
second the motion.
Okay,
Map
motion by-
2508,
let's
with the
finish the
three
motion.
items of, down there, from the staff. A sanitary system evaluation to be completed by 5/1/2026. Outhouse to be properly abandoned by 5/1/2026. And follow all local, county, state, and federal requirements for this activity. And to send this on for the county board to make the final approval.
Okay, Supervisor Blomberg's motion, is second.
Second,
Second
with
by
all the conditions stated.
Supervisor Tucker.
Yep.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, a roll call vote. Supervisor Tucker,
Yes.
Supervisor Moyer,
Yes.
Supervisor Szymanski,
Yes.
Supervisor Blomberg,
Yes.
Supervisor Chuck Anderson,
Yes.
Supervisor Karen Lunko Anderson,
Yes.
Supervisor Connery, yes, motion's carried. We'll approve it at the committee level and move to county board.
So Tom, this is Jason. I will go to the county board meeting on your behalf. I don't suspect there'll be any questions or anything. And then after that's approved at the county board, I'll send you a letter telling you it's all been approved.
Are you there?
Maybe he muted himself.
He did.
Okay.
And the county board meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, the 12th of November, I believe.
Yes. Yep, that's correct.
Okay, on to our next rezoning, which is American Legion Post 401 in the town of Swiss. So you guys are here obviously for that one.
Yes.
Come on, come forward and just run it by us.
Morning. My name is John Hicks and I'm the commander of our post. And the property in question, we purchased this a year or so ago. And at the present time, it has an old shed on it that's about to fall down. And we are using it primarily for somewhat storage, but it's inadequate. And we would like to tear that shed down and put up a proper building that would be used for our float storage, flag storage, that type of thing. With an office in it and a meeting room.
Makes perfect sense. So, any, and then if any other questions by the committee?
Right to the east of the current building.
Yeah.
Bar and restaurant. that right east of
It's,
that?
it's west of there. It's 2 blocks west of the bar. Yeah, on the north side of the highway.
Yeah, it's not, that's why it's zoned residential, cause it's, yeah, about 2 blocks to the west in more of a residential type setting. There's houses on each side of it.
We have had discussions with all the neighbors in the area as well, and told them kind of what our plans were. Everybody seemed to be very happy with it. There was no objection to it, so.
No, I was gonna bring this up later, but it's good a time as any. It was even sooner when we get to the consistency with the town plan. You know, it seems when you read the narrative of that, that it's kind of not what it really, the use there is. It's the unincorporated village of Grantsburg, right? And it's sort of a broad, general, low density residential sort of thing, and that's not what that is. I think we might put a little sidebar that the town should perhaps look at the comp plan next time to define it a little better. You know what I mean? Because,
We went to Swiss and talked to them about it.
right, therefore,
Yeah, yeah, on a
I
letter.
know they are.
They probably didn't review their comprehensive plan though. When they,
No, and this is a small thing, if you know what I mean. The plan is not an ordinance, it's guidance.
Right.
But they used a real broad, general rural residential definition, and it should be a little overload for Danbury. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But this is not to block it, but I just want to put that on the record that we should, you know, maybe just next time we talk to the town of Swiss about their plan, maybe Danbury should have a little separate definition, right?
yeah, Danbury, I mean, when you think about Danbury, I guess I shouldn't get too far sidetracked, but it is like a village. I mean, it has sewer and water, but we have a county ordinance that is developed for unincorporated areas that we're trying to basically get Danbury to try to fit in with our ordinances and Swiss's comp plan, you know,
And
so.
some counties, towns have an unincorporated village overlay they do
Mhm,
to provide for the urban type setting that exists there,
mhm.
right? So I don't think what you wanna do is at all, it's on a state highway and there's commercial on both directions. Perfectly rational, but it is slightly at odds with the language of the plan. They're just we're recognizing, we understand that, and that's something that should be corrected at the plan, not at this level. Make sense, Mark?
Mark Mosley. We've been working with the town of Swiss trying to get them to adopt some new rules for Danbury proper because their sizes are based on county sizes, not on sewer and water and stuff. So they know they need to do something there. I don't know how fast they're gonna do it, but they know they need to do their resizes and get their districts
Yeah,
squared away.
let the minutes show in the public hearing that Mark added that the Swiss is aware and is working on it. And so that allows us to say, okay, it will become consistent with the town. Good enough.
What's the advantage of rezoning to commercial versus just doing the CUP?
Well, good question, but it's a small non-conforming lot. So you might want to have some other uses there.
It's more of a commercial, when you still have meeting space and everything, it's
Commercial use.
more of a commercial type use than a home cause the only really stuff in residential is like a home occupation type business that you can get a CUP for, and this isn't someone living on the property, working as a side business, you know, they don't live there. It's for commercial type activities, so that's a better fit for it.
Yeah, and it's not that inconsistent with the adjoining zoning.
I mean, yeah, there's commercial further to the west, there's
Right.
commercial to the east, it's just there's this pocket of residential kind of right in there.
That whole stretch of 77 could almost be more of a mixed use district than a strictly residential district.
They would discuss it when you're, that they, yeah.
Yeah,
that
that
they
would
need
make
to
more
put
sense
something.
than what they do now.
Yeah.
And as Mark said, there needs to be some recognition, there's no need for wells and septics. It's a more urban density. So, anyway, I think if I didn't open the public hearing, I did, and now I will close the public hearing. Right,
I don't think you opened it.
I opened it, Mark Doctor.
Oh, yeah. You should probably ask if
There's
anybody else
only a
has.
handful of people here, we can cope with it. Anyway, so any further discussion on the committee's part? Luke?
It looks like on the 2022 aerial that we have, that looks like there's maybe a potential future street on the north end of that property as well. Is that right?
I think it was-
East side and the north side. Those are platted streets, and I believe the town of Swiss does not want to abandon those because they have some utilities running through there, but I don't believe they plan on ever constructing streets from kind of what I.
That's exactly what they said at the meeting. They don't wanna abandon it, but they, you can see the power pole right there that they're using, so it's, yeah.
And if they
Thank
vacate
you,
it,
by the way, so-
allocated among either property owners equally and all
And
that.
easements for their utilities and.
It's Bob Savage, I'm a member, so I didn't know it's
It's
myself.
more complicated than just leaving it for them.
For the benefit of our clerk, should we have a formal opening of the public hearing and not a formal closing?
Did you catch me when I said that? I did open the public hearing and then close. Good point. I did that when Mark wanted to speak. Time to open the public hearing. Anyway, we're kind of off the cuff today, I guess, right? Anyway, so now the public hearing has been closed, we're discussing, and any other questions by committee or any other comments? Hearing none, I entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve map 2509 rezone from R1 to C1 with the conditions from the staff, follow all local, county, state, and federal requirements for this activity.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Supervisor Shemetsky, seconded by Supervisor Moyer.
And that's to be sent on to the county board for final approval.
Yes.
And then Jason, you.
Same thing, once they vote, whatever, I
Okay.
guess, if they pass it, then I'll
Any
tell
further
you
discussion?
next step.
Hearing none, roll call vote. Supervisor Tucker,
Yes.
Supervisor Moyer,
Yes.
Supervisor Shemansky,
Yes.
Supervisor Blumberg,
Yes.
Supervisor Chuck Anderson,
Yes.
Supervisor Aqua Anderson,
Yes.
Supervisor Conry, yes. Carried to refer to county board for approval.
Yep, so I'll go to the county board meeting and then I'll send you a letter afterwards when it's approved.
Thank you, Jason.
Yep.
Okay, now it's rezone map 2510 Collin to rezone from commercial to RR3.
He's online,
And is he,
not unmuted yet.
can he hear us?
So if you can unmute yourself, please. Or James,
Here, can you hear me?
Yes.
yes.
Sounds good.
Okay, again, this is a place that is a commercial property on the intersection of Long Lake Road and County H. You want to run us by, obviously, we know it's been used a few times as commercial and you're no longer going to do that, correct?
Yes.
So this place was, I can remember a long time ago when that was a hamburger stand. And it was a coffee shop for a while more recently.
Said it as a coffee shop.
Yeah, that was more recently. When it was like a drive-in.
Yep.
And had to have been in the early 60s. So, but it has not sustained ever any much commercial use and perfectly reasonable to put that RR3.
I often wondered how anything could survive in that corner. Since it's nothing there.
No, it's, I'm surprised somebody ever thought it was a good idea, but that's neither here nor there. Any further discussion? Not, I'll open the public hearing. Anyone here wishing to comment? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any further discussion by the committee?
So you do have a email right in there from the town of Scott, saying they do not object to the request.
Yeah, and in this case, the town of Scott doesn't have a future land use plan, so it's based on the existing land use ordinance. Which this would be consistent with the properties around there. I'm trying to roll up. No violations and no real conditions, other than simply follow the rules, may already exist. So, hearing no further discussion, I'd entertain a motion.
I make a motion to recommend a rezone of map 25-10 Conlin, rezone from C1 to RR3 to the county board. With the one condition, follow all local, county, state, and federal requirements for this activity.
Second.
Motion by Supervisor Lockwood Anderson, seconded by Supervisor Blumberg. Further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. Supervisor Tucker.
Yes.
Supervisor Moyer.
Yes.
Supervisor Szymanski.
Yes.
Supervisor Blumberg.
Yes.
Supervisor Chuck Anderson.
Yes.
Supervisor Lockwood Anderson.
Yes.
Supervisor Connor, yes. Motion carried to recommend rezone to county board.
So Terry, I will go to county board on your behalf, and then I will send you a letter afterwards when it's approved.
Thank you, Jason. I appreciate it.
No problem. I'm gonna pass around the 3 resolutions. They're stapled to my packet, so you're gonna get these, but these are the resolutions for the 3 rezones that you have to sign. They go on to county board, so those can wander around while we're going on to the next item.
Next on our agenda is to discuss zoning enforcement.
All right, so I put together a little document in here, I guess, to get the ball rolling or continue, I guess, on discussion here. My first little part there, pretty much on page 1, I just wanted to list all the various ordinances that land services essentially oversees. So, you know, you guys hear a lot about land use and shoreline zoning here. And those are obviously listed on there, and I've explained how many townships are under general zoning, villages are exempt. Areas outside are exempt from general zoning. We have shoreline protection, that's within 1,000 feet of a lake, flowage, or pond, or within 300 feet of a stream, creek, river, or the landward side of the floodplain. So there are spots where you have a creek. That 300 feet would be the end of the zoning, but there are spots where the floodplain might go out 800 feet. So zoning actually goes out to the floodplain area. Utility ordinance, that's all the pouts stuff in that section. We have the floodplain ordinance. That's the flood fringe floodway. Again, that applies to all areas within the county regardless of zoning. Unzoned and zoned areas. The areas within the villages, they have to do their own floodplain regulation. We have subdivision ordinance, that's all your land divisions, CSMs, plats. The plats are the only ones that you guys see. All the CSMs, subdivisions go through administrative approval of the office. That again is countywide regulation, except for within the areas of the villages. We have an airport ordinance, which limits the heights, setbacks, and uses around the Burnett County Airport. That's about 3.5 miles or so from the intersection of the runways. That we have to look at that stuff. And then we're part of the environment ordinance. That's a lot of nuisance junk stuff. So there's actually 3 departments: Sheriff, Health and Human Services, and Land Services are all listed in that ordinance.
Regarding the aviation. Rule. I presume the village of Grantsburg has its own setback rules then? Does that fall under the county?
Well, since that airport's within the village, they would, if they have their own airport ordinance, that would be for them to enforce. Yep. So this is just strictly the Burnett County Airport, and it's not the.
Landing strips and whatever.
Yeah, because there's about 5 other, you know, named airports in the county, like Boyer Village, is probably the main one. But there's a couple other kind of landing strips that are named or designated. So it doesn't apply to anything. I think this is tied to the federal funding that the Burnett County Airport is getting, and I believe all that stuff.
Thank you.
So yeah, environment, that's nuisance junk. There's 3 departments: Sheriff, Health and Human Service, Land Services, all have authority on that. That again, that applies to all areas within the county. Land Services doesn't do anything in the villages with that nuisance ordinance, but I think Health and Human Services and the sheriffs might. I don't know for sure. I just know Land Services doesn't go in the villages. And then we have a street, sidewalk and other public places ordinance, and that's where we have all of our addressing listed. That again is countywide. Areas within the villages, are not part of that ordinance, but we work very closely with them to hopefully get them to assign addresses correctly that follow with the countywide grid. Village of Grantsburg is on their own grid, but we still work with them to make sure stuff flows the right, numbers are increasing, decreasing the right way. So all the 911 and routing and everything is hopefully working correctly.
And the reason for that is the village of Grantsburg established their own numbering system
Yep.
prior to the county.
Yep.
Yep. That's to the county.
Yep. Yeah, that was in the mid-80s. I believe that the county did the addressing. So many of those ordinances, have various references to the Wisconsin statute and the Wisconsin administrative code. So I wasn't gonna list all of those. That we might as well just make a copy of the state codes. My next section I thought we would kind of talk about is, investigation triggers. So how are we currently operating? So right now, if we get a citizen complaint, and that can be as, somebody could call in. People mail us letters and notes, and sometimes they do it anonymously. They don't have a return address on the thing. They don't sign the letter inside. It's an envelope that says, here's an issue. We get emails. We have people stop at the counter. We have people that talk to us when we're out and about doing field work. They'll flag us down. They see us at the neighbor's place. So that's how we currently take citizen complaints right now. I just kind of have a question in here. Do we want to require a formal written, request that somebody has to fill out to accept the complaint? Or do we keep operating the way we are? I mean, I can look at, there's gonna be positive and negatives either way you do it. So, I guess that's my first question. I don't know if you want to go at this as questions or have me go through everything and then come back
No,
afterwards. It's
Let's go one at
kind
a
of
time.
how you want to do it.
Take them as they come. I think, a lot of people don't want to be named as a complainant if they are a neighbor or something, even though there may be a fairly egregious violation. I don't know that you only can investigate if you get that. If someone is serious, and wants to make a formal complaint and sign it, fine, but I don't think that that's the only way you can react. Seems to be too limiting to me.
And I checked with Polk County and they've gone back and forth, and currently Polk does allow anonymous complaints. I mean, obviously, if it's something that requires, you can't follow up on, if it's their word of mouth that requires testimony in court.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can follow up on, but if you can easily see it driving by, it's basically just a trigger that it's like anyone walking by could see it and someone has complained about it now.
Yeah, and if you know me, I was got an anecdote, but I use an example of a trout fisherman telling a game warden he saw an outfall pipe in a stream in Washburn County, And so the warden told me, so that's like third hand. So, I went, eventually found it, but, there's public access to the trout stream, right? And the only thing I had to deal with was the landowner's big German Shepherd that smelled me, but I got upwind of him and got away. But anyway, all kidding aside, yeah, that's something you want to look for if a credible source told you about it. So even though it, became a third-hand observation.
One thing with a formal complaint letter, you probably would have less work to do because nobody would want to fill them out.
Some extent, I don't know that we get a lot of them, and I think also, I'll expound on this too. If you sometimes get some that are just people trying to weaponize you against somebody they're mad at, and you have to be smart enough to sort through those and not react or make them prove it. You can kind of sense that, though. I think we have to rely on staff having enough judge of character and astute enough to smell that first,
Well, that happens.
Wasn't Bill accused of have the right to know who the accuser is?
I think it would come out if it was, a court action. I think you would have to at some point. I don't think it's not like a witness protection program, right? So,
Well, if I call the DNR as a tip line, if I call that tip line, it's anonymous and the DNR warden, if they see something, they will write a citation to it. So the warden is the one that's actually seeing the item and writing the citation for it. They just had the person flag it so the warden could find it themselves to see it firsthand. So how that
But on
works.
the tip line, though, they still have your phone number. They can still follow that number back to you.
Yeah, but that's not an open record. I can't go and request that information from the state,
Okay.
So the accuser is you. I mean, you're just being tipped off.
if we
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm the accuser, cause then I have to then I have to go out and physically see. I do not send a letter to someone unless I see it myself. So if somebody says, hey, the neighbor has a sewer spewing out on the ground, they don't get a letter from me. I go out there and check. Because I just unfortunately can't take everybody's word for everything, so I gotta verify, trust but verify. I guess.
some comment from the back.
Most of that, but that gets to the next step of Jason's outline, which is, we have to investigate. So just like an officer doesn't write somebody a ticket for faulty registration just because the neighbor calls and says it's got a faulty registration, the officer has to see it himself. Then the officer's the one who stands up in court and says, I see this, I believe this is true, I'm pursuing this. So that process, that theory applies to land use as well. If it's something that requires permission to go onto a neighbor's property or that the neighbor saw and has video of or something like that, then absolutely that neighbor has to give their name and has to participate in order for it to go forward. But if it's, hey, I keep driving by and my neighbor has,
The garage built or something.
yeah, something like that.
Well, I can see it from the road then.
And you
Yeah.
see the road,
Yeah.
it's plain view. So Jason will become the complainant, not a neighbor.
Okay. Good, thank you. So I think, as far as I'm concerned, we continue to do what we're doing, recognizing there needs to be some discretion. Next, go ahead, proceed, Jason.
So another thing that so again, we're talking about what flags us for investigation, so staff observation. So if we're driving past something and we see it, we deal with it or we make a note of it. Like if I drive by, I'm going to 10 sites that day and I do this all, if I drive by, see a new house or new garage being built over there, I just jot down the address, 2842. And then when I get back to the office, cause I'm not the only one that deals with land use permits. We have a couple other staff too. So I just look, oh, yep, they got a permit. Hey, good to go, but if I don't see a permit, then I'm like, all right, what are they doing? Have they talked to somebody in the office already? Are they doing some, do they not have a permit? So anything that we see, we deal with. If we're at a property, when we get a land use permit, we're looking at things that are going on at the property. At the site to check on a complaint. We don't have a drone, so we're not flying over people's property, the black ops or whatever, looking for things. We don't go hunting. I or my staff don't go out. Hey, go drive around Clam Lake today and go find whatever you can find wrong. We got enough work to do as it is. We're not out there hunting and driving around looking for stuff, but if we see it, we deal with it. And we don't do illegal searches, we knock on the door. If we can go to someone's house, that's what everyone has the right to do. We can't go cross fences and go start looking in their backyard and everything else. When we're on their property for a land use permit, they've signed the permit application saying we're allowed to be there. So that's how we're doing it right now. Do we want staff to have blinders on and be like, I see nothing, I'm driving down the road, I ignore everything until I get to my site? Or when I'm at the site, they're pulled a permit for garage, I look at this garage, I don't look at anything else going around me, is it, is that what we wanna do going forward? I
No.
guess.
And it is not.
I would say so.
I agree with the current.
I disagree too, because again, in my own experience, I inspected a septic. The electrical was not hooked up yet, pump. I was driving past that site on 4-lane 53, going, as fast as it's legal. And glanced over there and could tell that the electrical was not correctly put up. So on my way back, I pulled in there and verified that and then notified the plumber, that's enforcement. That your electrician doesn't know what he's doing because he has a plug into a outdoor outlet to run the pump. It's not hardwired, that's enforcement. That's the kind of thing you see. You can't not see that, it's gonna fail the guy's private sewage system with a short out with his pump when the snow got deep and melted, right? So, no,
So, just so I understand you, Lee. Jason walks onto a property because to review a land use permit for a garage. And he looks at the lake shore and there's not a tree or bush on the whole lake shore for 200 feet. It cleared everything. He's not supposed to do anything about that?
No, he's there to look at the garage.
No, I totally disagree. If you see something, you gotta act on it. People broke the law. And you just wanna let them skate by? Doesn't make sense to me.
or, in the case of the plumbing and the septic and stuff, that's a code, that you're credentialed to enforce. So when you observe a violation, it's public health and safety and welfare stuff we're talking here.
Yeah, hey, if it's out in the open and you see it, to me, you should enforce it. If you walk onto a property and they got a garage that they had a permit for, you don't go into that garage to make sure there's no living quarters or bathroom or kitchen or, you don't do that. But if you see something out in the open, to me, they broke the law and they need to fix it.
And maybe with your example of the shoreline having been cleared, maybe that was not a willful violation, maybe it was some ignorance or
Yep, either way.
misunderstanding or something.
That happened in my district and I explained to them, they said, that's the way I bought it. And I said, you bought the problem. Now you gotta fix it.
Yeah, and the thing is, keep in mind is it's not the job of the department to punish people, that's the court's
Right,
job.
right.
It is the job of the department to try to assure compliance with the rules that every consensus of people have agreed we need to have to maintain order and protect the environment and all of those sort of things.
I don't think that, you can ignore something. And that's part of their job is to find, is to notice what's going on. And I don't think you can go down the road with blinders. You look over here and see something that is blatantly not on, like Jason said, he comes back in. Maybe one of the other people in the department had already given the permit. But at least he noticed it and checked it out. I think that's great.
So, did you have something to?
Yeah, Jason, he enforces our ordinances, whether they be land use or whether they be signage ordinances and so on and so forth. But I think what the disconnect becomes is that the public, our constituents, the taxpayers of the county don't necessarily know what ordinances are on the books. So you could say it could be education for one thing, but where do these ordinances come from? And I think a lot of the public thinks that maybe ordinances go way too far when it comes to signage, when it comes to land use. And I don't know if these ordinances actually originated from our constituents. I don't know if they come from meetings we go to talk about, oh, this is what should be done for zoning and what should be done for signed ordinances. And then we pass these ordinances through resolution when actually it might not have came from our constituents. That's more where I'm at from it, is that when you look at definitions, we can play with definitions all we want. But when it comes right down to it, if we aren't meeting the needs and what the wants are of our constituents, why are we doing them? When I look at enforcement from the standpoint of, yeah, they might meet the letter of the law. You're gonna go to court and you're gonna pay the ticket, but at the same time, I don't know that I'm okay with certain, violations of our ordinances being sent a violation letter, fine. But when it comes down to actually finding an individual, when it comes to having what we maybe consider to be junk in somebody's yard, you can change the definition all you want. But, I know cases and anonymousness, I mean, we talked about that. And, people want to remain anonymous with their complaints. When they get, citations based on having junk in their yard at whatever, $300 some a day. I think that's something that should be overseen a little bit by, say, the township board. The township board is really close to its residents. They're held accountable. And at least before there is a citation involving financial type penalty, I think the town should be in agreement with that. Because there has been instances where towns would not have agreed with it. And when it comes to sanitary, that's a totally different deal. We're talking about health there. That's a totally different thing. But actually, I think it has to do with more of our ordinances than anything else. So we might have to look at those and see if we are being too over intrusive.
We've heard the same song and dance every time we talked about this. And so we're done talking about that.
We're done talking about what?
We're done talking about whether it's junk or not junk, or you think it's.
Yeah,
junk or
and
you think
I'm
it's-
saying is
we're
I'm done talking about it too.
Yeah.
Because it comes down to what a person decides is junk or not junk and
Yes.
how it's to be enforced.
You have to have an ordinance, it has to say something. You can dispute that, you can contest it in
Yep.
court if you want to, but we're done talking about that.
Not talking about it yet.
Yeah,
Because
that's who we are.
Yeah.
The next item.
the
We're
deal-
done, we're done, we're done.
I need to be able to make a point on what that is.
You made it a bunch of times already. You've talked about this to death. Let's get on with it.
Not accurate.
Well, I'm moving on.
You're the chair.
Yes, good, glad you noticed. Now, on to, we're not
So
gonna ignore him going forward.
we had staff follow-up. So that's previously issued permits, land use conditional variances, short-term rentals, you know, all the different things that we deal with. I know I've heard in the past, you know, and we don't have a set schedule for following up on anything. We, you know, I recall most of the things that have come to the committee. So if I'm driving by, I might, you know, glance over, oh yeah, I remember there was a variance for this and, you know, see if the thing was dealt with. Yeah, there's no set schedule though on every year we look back at the CUPs or the variances and make sure all the conditions were followed up. You know, I don't know, do we wanna have? We could try to come up with a policy to have some sort of set timeframes to look at things, deal with them when we drive by, deal with it when we have a complaint. There's all sorts of ways we could try to go about that. That is probably the most difficult thing to do. You know, there was, I think, one of the variances last night, there was 9 conditions put on it. You know, so you start thinking, you know, a CUP has 3 or 4 conditions or 5 and a variance, and we generally have, you know, 25 variances a year, 20 some CUPs, so that's 50 applications. You got 5 things each, that's 250 conditions from 1 year, you know, of things that we should be following up on. That's probably something that we gotta get better at doing.
And again, it's a matter of capacity of staff
Mhm.
and maybe there's a way to use technology for some tickler files that would, you know, trigger some of those things to, well, we should take a look at this one because, but generally, no news is usually no news. Occasionally, it is a problem.
Yeah.
That there is something that's in violation.
And there's been a few times where the committee has put, you know, we want to review this again in 5 years, you know, and we don't have a computer system that allows us to put a date, you know, 5 years from now, send Jason an email, you know, to remember to check on this thing. So that's what some of the sophisticated, you know, big entities have, are those workflow management programs that you can enter all that stuff into, but they're expensive. you know, we're a small county, doesn't have a lot of resources, so,
I think we have
you
to
know.
put that down as one of those, we do the best we can with it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been chewing on that for a few years, you know, how do we do that? Do we try to, you know, make an internal Excel spreadsheet of some sort that you can at least sort the fields and columns? You know, not ideal, obviously, but you know, there is a way, so. Yeah, that's something I think I gotta keep working on or keep following up on to try to get the better workflow on that.
I would appreciate something to start tracking it. I mean, or just your brainstorming, you know, don't want to add a lot of workload. But, you know, if it weren't difficult for there to be some sort of a spreadsheet, because then at least you could say, oh, yeah, that got reviewed. You know, just something, I mean, just maybe further discussion on what could we potentially do that isn't a huge stress on budget or time. But with the number of variances, conditional uses, and to me, especially when it pertains to shoreline protection, I would like to see, you know, I don't know if that'd be something Emily would follow up on when it comes to the shoreline protection things. I would like to see, you know, because I've listened at meetings where basically the applicant has indicated that they're not going to do it anyway. You know, just kind of blatant disregard. And I guess I'd like to know, you know, that there's some sort of, you know, a year from now, 2 years from now, it's like, did they follow up and are they continuing to do it?
I think if we put conditions in there and don't follow up on them, people are gonna find out pretty quickly that they don't need to worry about conditions. We might as well stop calling them conditions and call them recommendations. So, yeah, I'd like to see some sort of a tickler file that says at least within 6 months. I think a good example is the storage unit up on Highway 77 in Webb Lake. Is that guy gonna plant trees?
Well, he did after a few years of encouragement,
Yeah.
call it,
Yeah.
You know, the thing is, we needed to encourage.
you know.
True, and you know, and again, I remember a little bit of a discussion on that, is we're in a pretty pronounced drought in which we back in now. And you know, we want them to succeed with the planting of trees, maintain it, not just plant them and oh, they died, you know. Catch-22, again, everybody's trying sometimes and things don't go their way. So recognize that too.
And I've heard that from more than one person that, yeah, I need to plant stuff on the shoreline, so I planted it. Not take care of it. It goes away, I followed the condition. I got proof.
Yeah, that back with the shoreline buffer stuff, that's always been an issue with dead, diseased and dying, you know, which is everything at some point, right?
Yeah.
So you gotta try to maintain that is the point, and that's hard to keep a handle on.
I have a question on the conditions that we do, but even, you know, like for Board of Adjustment and for shoreline protection things and shoreline restoration. Is there an expectation or is there even a legal indication that they need to keep up with it? I mean, with how it's worded, is it gonna say in the report, it's like, well, like Randy said, it's like, well, I did it. Is it worded or is there an understanding that this is an ongoing agreement to maintain?
Well, there are some agreements that get recorded with the Register of Deeds office, so, if I'm doing the gazebo provision, the 59.692.1V, where I'm allowed to do 200 square feet of open sided construction between 35 and 75. That requires a document gets recorded with the Register of Deeds to notify, essentially put it on the parcel, the record. So any future person that buys that land sees that, yep, there's a shoreline restoration required to this parcel in order to get this project. So there are some of those. Same thing with impervious area. When somebody goes over 15%, they have to do mitigation to offset the impervious area. That agreement gets recorded with the Register of Deeds. It's more of the, I guess, let's go back to the storage unit example on 77. You guys said, you know, you gotta plant some trees for a buffer. There's nothing recorded. There's not a covenant that gets recorded on that parcel. It's literally on the decision document that he has sent, part of the permit paperwork. So if somebody looks at the permit, it's gonna show that, yep, so-and-so had to do this project, but it's not recorded.
So basically, it's like the discussion we had where, like the packet is attached to when someone applies for a conditional use or a variance. If you go into a report, like,
The parcel and click permits, you will see up all the permits that have been issued.
right,
Yep.
so there's a reasonable way to access.
Yep, those are all available online. What our goal was to have it so realtors or, potential buyers or anyone, it's all there so they can hopefully pull that up and see, oh, yep, this, do people read through all that stuff? I don't know,
Yeah, as
but
long
it's
as
all
they're
there.
accessed.
Yeah,
And I guess, this is like finding the things and following up on the things. I guess my question is, and we did have an enforcement discussion on how many chances they get and letters and fines. My goal isn't to fine people to death. It's how do we foster an environment of compliance? And it's going to be different. I mean, it's like, I think there's variances for, one person's junk. I'm more concerned about like shoreline stuff. I mean, I'm thinking about that. It's like, how many chances do they get when they already agreed to do it?
and we're almost that'll be one of our points we're gonna talk about a little bit further down there.
Withdraw my question.
Move on to resources.
So yeah, resources staff use to gather information, so, visible from the road, public property, water, we don't have a boat, so we're not out there, cruising around looking for things, but, I did go walk on, I had a complaint once from a neighbor saying my neighbor is doing something else. I walked on his property, it was ice, walked out on the ice, stayed out on the public water, looked at the property and then just walked back, so, we do that. Aerial imagery, Google Maps, Google Street View, there's pictometry LiDAR. Google Street View has driven pretty much all major roads in the county, and I don't know how many of you have used that. You can zoom or drop the walking pin on the road, do a 360 spin. Some of the roads, they have multiple years of imagery, so you can see here's what it looked like from the road, 2008, here's what it looked like in 2015. Yep, so you can click on some of the roads have different years of imagery. We look at prior permit records, prior site photos that we have, information from who's ever complaining about it, websites or other information available, so that's like the short-term rentals, people are saying, oh, it's for rent on, so that's how if the neighbor calls and complains, it says my neighbor's renting their cabin without a license, we go and, do a quick search on VRBO or something, see, oh, yep, there it is. So those are, and then, visible from contacting the property owner. So, we'll go knock on their doors sometimes. Go, hey, we got a complaint about something going on, can we go look at it? Most of the people that are pretty good, going, oh, yeah, let's go look at it. Oh, I didn't know I couldn't do this, that. So again, it's, trying to educate people for the most part. So those are the resources that we have to try to investigate different violations right now. So again, we don't have a drone, not flying over people's property, so. Current enforcement steps, so this was kind of what you were getting about. So usually, complaint, observation, follow-up comes in, we investigate the issue. Again, we always look at it ourselves as a department. We don't just say, the neighbor calls us and said they're doing something wrong and we don't fire off a letter until we visually see it ourselves. Serious health violations, they get an automatic citation. So that is generally that's a sewer spewing on the ground. Those ones get a citation. That's how Flanagan's always done it. That's how I've done it. Now, again, how many is that a year? Sewer citations, 2 to 3 a year, probably, I would say, of a citation. Now, we gotta remember, there's a violation letter and there's citation. So I'm talking, wrote a citation, it goes to Stephanie, it goes to court, that's a citation. all other violations, they get a letter from us first. So it's like, hi, John, it appears that you have built a garage without a permit. And we put in, when we, do that letter, if it's an after the fact permit, it's been standard protocol, it's 2 times the fee. Is what we charge for it.
Is there any trend as to what types of properties have sewage going onto the ground? Is it campsites? Is it lakeshore properties? Any?
No, I think it's just randomly. You know, you'll find one on a lake or get a complaint about one on a lake, or you'll get a complaint on, you know, one that's, you know, just out in the neighborhood. Yeah, I don't, there's no rhyme or reason that I can think of.
I think there's fewer of them than there once was, because most of those, back when the greenfields were half as big as they are now for residential use, they failed quicker. And often ponded on the surface. Most people are pretty quick about getting that corrected anyway.
Yeah.
And then historically, we had that Wisconsin Fund program where eligible people were able to get some reimbursement. It's pretty much dried up, I think.
That has not been, yeah, they have not funded that program for the last like 4 years, I think, or something.
Right.
Yeah, and they've never changed the threshold, so the income threshold was never tied to inflation, so it got so low.
Nobody likes that little money.
Exactly, to be
It
honest.
was, it just let it kind of expire by no one being eligible anymore.
So yeah, so they get a letter from us, the first one, and we usually, you know, depending on the time of the year, I put in the letter, you know, please fill out submit a permit by, and you know, if it's summertime, I might put 30, 60 days. If it's, you know, January, I usually say submit a permit, you know, might give them some more time. Since it's winter and stuff,
You do put a date that they must comply.
I always say that we want a permit, or you know, if it's a permitting issue, like I say, permit, if a permit is submitted by so and so a day, we won't charge 3 times, because that's it can go 3 times the regular rate. So we say, okay, if we send them a letter, we do 2 times the rate. And if they get it within that time, or reach out to me, you know, if they call me up and go, yep, I got, you know, we got your letter and we're working on it, or oops, we, you know, didn't know that. You know, as long as the big thing is trying to get them to communicate with us. So that's what we do. There's, and like I said in there, if the owner reach out to us, we can grant extensions. There's multiple violation letters that are in the file that, you know, we make notes on them that say, yep, John called today on this date. He's asked for another, you know, 60 days to get it resolved. Okay, you know, and that's not a problem.
Good.
Yeah. You know, and I guess I'll get a little off the sidetrack here. So, I helped Washburn County yesterday be part of their interview team for their zoning administrator. I'm not applying for that position, but they asked me to sit on the interviews, right? And since nobody else on the team had zoning experience, so I sat in with them, and I was listening to like how they send their site violation letters. So, you know, it's our letter says, I write them, it says it appears that there may be a violation on your property. You know, so I'm like, you know, 99% sure there is, but I'm trying to have it be soft. Washburn County violation cease and desist order is how they've been doing it lately. I'm like, holy S. I'm like, that is not a good way to build public relations in your community. So, I mean, so people, if they think Burnett County is like this big heavy-handed, you know, big brother in the corner, you know, I think people need to maybe reach out to some other counties to see how things are being done. So, so I'll just, that was my little 2 cents there. You know, how many letters do we want to send out before we do a citation? You know, I've got stuff in the file where I've sent 3 letters to people and they haven't resolved it yet.
Do you do anything other than letters? Like, is there a phone number in the file that you try to call?
A lot of times we don't have a phone number if they've never given us a permit, and you can't, now everybody's cell phones, you can't look up
Yeah.
white pages anymore, doesn't have any information on it. You know, it's letters, how we can get a hold of people.
And can we verify that if you're sending me a letter and let's say I'm no longer at that address, but you're sending me a tax bill and I'm paying that tax bill, those addresses are the same, correct?
We send it to wherever
So
the
if I'm
tax.
paying my
bills
tax
are.
bill, you know the address is correct.
Correct. I think what happens though is some people maybe don't even get their tax bill and they know to just go on the county's website in the end of December and pay their tax bill because you can do it online. So I don't even know if everybody's keeping their addresses up to date.
And when we used to send registered letters strictly, sometimes people won't accept them,
Yep.
you know?
Right.
And so you sometimes you don't have to send it registered necessarily, and I sometimes camouflage the return address from rather than Washburn County Zoning Administrator, WCZA or something.
Okay.
And then they took it, oh, drat, there's the ticket, you know.
If you issue a citation and I come back and say, you know, geez, I'm sorry, you had the wrong address, somehow I found out about this and I'm willing to make it, you can get rid of the citation. right?
Yeah, a lot of times what we've done is, when it gets to a citation, we've negotiated down to court costs in most cases, which is like 114, 100, yeah. Usually,
There have been cases where we done a motion in diesel, with a resolution being prompt or with an agreement to remain in compliance for a period of time. You know, but I negotiate with anybody who's willing to negotiate with me.
My initial reaction to how many letters would be 3 strikes, you're out.
Are we talking about all letters?
How, he's sending a notification letter saying you're in violation, we think you may be, however you worded it.
Yep.
In violation of this, and if after 3 letters that I got, I don't respond to Jason, I should be issued a citation.
Makes sense to me
That's-
with that.
And I'm just going by 3 strikes, you could go 2, you could
It's
go
a-
4. you could-
That's a generous number, yeah, that's.
3 strikes seems logical for some reason, I don't know. Maybe just because we're. it's
Isn't
just-
necessarily-
you know, 2 or 3 kind of, you know.
I guess
Sometimes
I'm
the US,
surprised. To me, it's maybe the amount of time in between. too.
Yeah. Well, let me give you an example. So I gave the guy, I sent him 2 violation letters. Gave him a citation, you know, so that was like the 3rd one. And he comes in, he's like, well, I'm trying to correct it. Like. I'm like, I drive by it once in a while, nothing's changing. You haven't contacted me. Why didn't you at least call me? It says right on the bottom, call the zoning office. Why didn't you call me? You know, and that's ultimately one, then we negotiated a resolution on that one. But again, it's like, the guy's like, yeah, I got your letters. Then call and talk about it.
Question on that, with that citation letter, what was the violation on that?
That guy had about a dozen cars in his yard.
Okay, and you know, for me, it's objective to say, oh, you built a building without a permit, or oh, you did this, or oh, you did that. That's very objective. Where I have a problem with it is subjective things. If there's something that's subject to one person's opinion, when it comes down to, like you just mentioned, with cars and that, I'm gonna bring a resolution forward that if it's something subjective like that, I mean, the town boards have no problem. Most likely, if there's been complaints of junk cars or junk in general, I'm gonna bring a resolution forward to require town agreements on that sort of a violation, but building type stuff, I mean. If I build a building without a permit, yeah, you're supposed to have one of those.
What if, and I'll just play devil's advocate, what if the township says that's why we've gotten general zoning, so we don't have
People
to.
are saying, yeah, you don't need to send us anything. Fine, no problem. No problem with that. The town says, no, we don't need to see that, that's fine.
Yeah, then we have a lot of townships that
Yep.
are like, that's why we hire you, we don't wanna deal
Yep,
with this.
and totally agree. If the town board says, yeah, we don't care, we don't wanna have any part of that, I'm fine with that. But to me, the subjective things that are based on opinion on what one person's junk is versus another person's, there's gonna be complaints in the community to that town board.
change the ordinance and make it so it's not subjective.
We are due, you know,
You could say that you get X amount of cars in your yard.
well, again, it's wide open, but for me, the citation part has to do with that, not so much building. Like building your garage with a permit, yeah, that's common sense. To me, that's very objective, but the subjective pieces that I hear the most about it, that'd be a very simple step. To be able to correct that problem and get me off of your back.
Understand,
But what,
understand.
why not have the town board be more involved in defining the ordinance?
Well, to a certain extent,
Well, we got 17 townships, so that probably wants 17 different definitions.
well, and part of it is the towns adopt general zoning. And Duke made a point correct earlier that maybe people have never read it for years, right? But the point is that they adopt general zoning so that they don't have to deal with it mostly. And like, I'm gonna jump in with my town, my district. Wants to enhance its ability to inspect driveways for fire protection. And I'm helping them craft an ordinance. The county has standards for driveways. That was done for fire and public safety years ago. That's gonna involve the county. If the town does the inspections and then determines there's a driveway that needs enforcement, it'll have to come to the county. The town doesn't have the status to enforce it. You know, so that in that case, the township is asking for more support on an issue of public safety and safety for firefighters and whatnot. All the droughts and all the fires, I think have stimulated that discussion among fire chiefs, but.
Yeah, I would rather see the town be involved in like what we just went through over the last 6, 8, 9, whatever, 12 months with the ordinance change. To review those and say, hey, this is too vague, or I don't, this is more of a reactive mode where now the town's gonna go, well, no, you can have 20 cars. What's the big deal? If they would have been involved when we wrote the ordinance, we wouldn't have this problem.
All right, so very good point by Randy there, but so in our township of West Marshland, right now there's some enforcement action going on some properties out near the river there. The town board's way supportive of making sure that them citations are issued and so on, and so am I. But in the case of an older gentleman that's in my township that's lived in his home for, let's say 60 years. He is way in violation of the junk and auto salvage policy and nobody's ever complained about it. That's how he lives. There's no way he's gonna afford $390 a day. But driving by, you could say, oh, he said something to me that makes me mad. He is in violation of that all the way. But by having town board oversight, it eliminates having to worry
Is
about
he
it.
in violation or is he just at the non-conformity that
No,
he built over time?
we're not talking building, we're talking junk.
No, but that's too many junk cars before the ordinance was adopted. Don't become a violation when the ordinance is
All
adopted.
of the above, okay?
Might be.
But nonetheless, what I'm saying is, there is no question, and I could say this, reading our ordinances, that it's definitely a violation, but it's not acted on. If the town board has oversight on that, to say, you know what? We haven't received any complaints, we should leave them alone. I just think that a town should be able to opt in or opt out of that.
Well,
So,
again, we're gonna spend a lot of time on that, but
no, the town being involved in ordinances is great, but we're not enforcing them evenly.
it should be, Stephanie?
I would urge very careful consideration of federal language, because like you said, not even enforced between townships, that will require here. Having a situation where Johnny is in township 1, where they have actions and hearings and refer everybody, but Billy's in township 2, where they don't want to participate, then you've got Johnny who's got extra chances to either avoid an ordinance violation or to have extra people saying, no, you have to have a violation. So that's when you get a sort of uneven application of the law as well, which is sort of legally problematic as well. So,
Well, the enforcement that we're talking about in West Marshland, they could easily drive around and say, well, why aren't you picking on that person? Why aren't you finding that person? Why aren't you finding that person? It's rampant. So, to me, it'd be just a very common sense solution way to solve it. You don't have that many enforcement citations of junk or salvage vehicles that would anyway. So you're not talking a lot of these. If you got to the impression saying, oh, I gotta send them a citation, is it really that complicated or hard to say, we're gonna get the town's blessing before we do this?
It sounds like the legal implications might be.
Well, there's legal implications now is what I'm getting at. If you've got unfair enforcement now.
If it's complaint driven, are you choosing which complaints you act on and which you don't? I mean, if no one's complained,
No, but I still think.
I don't know anybody here that would be okay with this old gentleman getting fined. There's no way he can pay it, but he's lived like that for decades.
But again, like Craig said, though, if it's been that way prior to when West Marshland adopted the ordinance, he's okay.
He's legal non-conforming, yeah. I mean, it's like when I drove around in Washburn County had 19 out of 21 zone townships, okay? They had, there were junk cars and stuff people had, and then there's apparently they'd been there for a good many years. I didn't go around saying that they were a violation. If they would, but where there was a junkyard that started to expand beyond its borders, yes, now you're expanding a non-conforming use. I think the bottom line is you don't go around looking for them, but when suddenly, different time, Washburn County, somebody bought a whole herd of cars and moved them into a field, you know, over a weekend. There was like 40 maybe. And the phone rang off the wall in the town of Crystal, you know, and that was a violation, right? Because it didn't used to be there. So, I mean, that's the thing that you gotta rely on the staff to have knowledge and discretion, and I think I don't have no issue if a town says, no, that guy's done that forever, we disagree with enforcing that. I think we'd pay attention, right?
Well, then we get into legal complications, but the thing is, if the town board signs a document saying, you know, county, you do what you want, we're good to go, and the other town says, no, we'd like to have oversight, I would think that that would come into court as well, right? Say that the town has made this determination.
If the town's requesting oversight, some of that would come into how they've opted in the zoning or not opted in the zoning, where those parameters are. But for the county as a whole requiring or taking one action based on one township's action and another based on another township's action, that's where my little buzzers go, hang on, be careful.
Yeah. And our town's talking about getting out of county zoning still. And this is a contentious area. So just offering a solution.
It's happened in towns, I mean, it's some, you know, there's plenty of examples of that, so.
and we have had this conversation a lot, but I do acknowledge the concern. But as you stated, there are very few. And so are we potentially creating more problems by over addressing something that isn't that much of an issue? Because I've been contacted by constituents who are more concerned about, I mean, some rental properties, and she wants the county to back her on, you know, helping to enforce it with her own tenants. And, you know, even a neighboring property, let's say a person has a problem with their neighboring property, but the town doesn't. So that person doesn't get a voice anymore. I mean, it's.
Of course they do. They can come and talk to the town board. You know, as an example, I would assume that all of us go to our town meetings so that we know what's going on and have a kind of a heartbeat on what's going on. Our town board would like to see this. I asked them specifically. I'm not just here spewing what I'd like to see done. I did ask our town board and they thought that would be a good idea.
But did you inform them about the legal complications of doing it?
Would there really be any legal complications to them? I mean, seriously, I mean, we have all the time now. We can approve zoning right now without the town's blessing.
No, but she's stated multiple times by different towns having special.
But right now, we generally read a town's wishes and say, yeah, we're gonna approve this zoning and we're not based on what the town says. I mean, we disapproved a gravel pit from being authorized or used in Lincoln Township based on the town board's input.
Right.
But we don't have to.
In case of zoning, we do. Because town has veto authority over change of zoning outside the shoreline areas. Conditional use permit, no.
So what would it require for a town to have veto authority in that area that we're discussing then?
Not their own ordinance,
To adopt an ordinance at the town level
force it themselves.
for junk?
Yeah, they get out of county zone, yeah. Then they take on they enforce it however they want then.
Yeah, but if they can override our zoning and took on county zoning, how are they overriding us now?
What it is, Duke, is that they adopted the map initially. And that said it was commercial, right? And we want to rezone it to resource conservation. Which is two complete opposites, right?
We're just coming from different viewpoints, I think.
And the town would say, no, that map we adopted is commercial, it stays commercial. There's a prescribed statutory time frame for them to do that. But they have like so many days. Let me back up and say, a town, we could make a recommendation to go to county board and town would still block the county board from doing it by passing its own resolution of denial within a period of time. The town can not only overturn the committee, it can overturn the county board within a certain prescribed statutory process. That's just the zoning map, you know, and these other regulations, like with using cars for an example, somebody who's a collector has got a number of cars for parts and whatnot, pretty benign, right? But somebody who's cracking them open and salvaging them and not taking care of their oil and antifreeze and gas and whatnot that they may be spilling on the ground, it can become a public problem. So there's some validity to scrutinizing it a little bit, okay?
Well, we're talking about procedure here and we're kind of getting off the track of what I was talking about, but we have, it's written out well here. What process do we want to use in issuing a citation? And what I'm hearing is whether it be a document that's signed or not, that we're not willing as a county to go to the town board and say, you know what? We've got complaints in this property, looking at issuing a citation, and you in agreement with that or not. But it sounds like we don't wanna even open that door to allow input from the towns, so.
Not right today. That would require some amendments and some work with the towns and, you know.
That's what I'm asking for, yep.
But that's an ongoing process. There's nothing stopping that from happening. But I think just to move on with what we do for enforcement, we understand what we do now. If to change that in the future, it would require some actions by the towns that wanted to take charge of certain activities that they wanted us to let them manage, you know. That's another matter, but in the ordinance we have now, it's tried to be as consistent countywide as possible. That's what we got.
Well, in general, I agree with what we got going here, but when it comes to that part, I do think there needs to be more.
I understand. Let's recognize that's not something we're gonna fix today.
Well, that's why we're here though. I mean, we can talk about it in the future.
Well, two things. We're talking about what the policies are now and what we're sticking with. And then if we want to modify some things, that's in the future, okay?
Yeah.
And,
So,
and I'll point out multiple times, our corporate counsel has advised against that. And so I think first we need to research safer legal alternative, you know, and then bring that.
Can we talk with corporate counsel and see what would be needed to make it so that it is acceptable to do it that way?
do some research on that.
No, I mean, what would need, if it's a problem now, what would need to be done to make it so it's not a problem?
I think she already advised us on that, but
She can,
Some more nuanced research and put that.
What would need to be put in place so that that could be done?
Yeah,
What
let's
That's what I'm asking.
put
I
that,
just want to clarify the question, but I make sure that I answer properly.
Sure.
What can be put in place to include township input in zoning enforcement with regards to some of these?
Yeah, specific zoning enforcement, not all zoning enforcement, yeah. Yeah. Ordinance, yeah. Yeah, cause it's not zoning,
I
so,
think that's broad, you're right. It's broader than just zoning. And
yeah, it's just ordinance, zoning wise, I'm on track, I'm tracking there,
Yeah.
but ordinance enforcement.
okay. Okay, let's do, proceed with that. This says
Yeah.
guidance to the committee. Doesn't need anything more than that for now. And let's continue on with our
Sure.
topic.
did we ever come to like a consensus on how many letters we wanna
I thought that
send?
3 was plenty, no more than that.
I'm thinking more like 2. I
Well,
mean, like, I mean, why three?
Yeah,
If you can get the first one, then you didn't.
Andy suggested three, then you use three sometimes.
Just
So,
thinking postage, continued time and follow-up. I mean, is there?
Yeah, a
reason you
little
wanted
background
to-
information. We went through this at Voyager. I was on the board at Voyager for people not paying their dues. And basically we sent the first letter saying, hey, you're late. Second letter said, hey, you're late. If you don't pay by this date, then we're taking action. The third letter said, you didn't pay, we took action. It would put a lien on your property.
So,
So they got two warnings.
So
So
they
that's two warnings. The third one said, sorry,
Third would be
you,
like a citation
Right.
and kind of for us. then.
yeah,
I
so,
think two should certainly be sufficient.
I mean, because you're just asking them to respond to you, but I would assign a time frame to it,
I-
like one letter and then X number of days.
I'd say this, I'd say, okay, let's say we're our intent. I don't like to see it written in stone. Because there needs to be a little discretion by staff to say, okay, that guy, the first one got lost in the mail, he never did get, you know, that kind of thing. But let's say that the target is two. And if three is okay, and if you still haven't heard anything, you get to, you know, take action further then.
Like the idea of three, just in case one of them does get
Yeah, two,
misdirected.
from our point of view of oversight, we're not trying to mind management here.
Mhm.
So let's say two is the target, three is understandable sometimes and let
You
it go.
could say a minimum of two,
yeah.
Minimum of
you know, then they get one, and then they get a second. Maybe the first one got lost, but then they get the second one, or, you know.
We have had people not come to public hearings, we didn't know why, you know, give a benefit of the doubt type of thing.
As an example, my informed delivery said that my auto registration was going to be there on the first Friday of October. I waited 3 weeks and it never happened, so then I went online, the form and I sent it in, initiating that process.
I had one of my mail letters with my check in it to Sirentel for my internet, never got there. You know what happened, you know? So it never got cashed either, but,
So that's why I prefer the idea of three.
yeah, well, you know, let's just say, you know, at least two and whatever you said, but recognize that sometimes you may have to
Yeah.
bend a little bit.
What do you wanna do? When we have a history of violations? Same property owner, just different properties. So let's say they've already been told once on a different property that they need to do this. And then they own another property and they do the same thing. Then they do own another property, buy another property, and they do the exact same thing. So you can't say it's an education issue, cause they've already been educated.
Good question.
There are
because
those people out there that we run into.
Playing games.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really hard answer, you know,
Mhm.
because if you say, okay, I know you bang citation right away, you're not being consistent with how you treat individual violations, right?
Individual violation, but it's the same person.
True, but our violations exist on a property, not.
Correct.
person.
Yep.
I'd be inclined to say I'd shorten maybe up the times, but I'd still probably want to send them two before I did anything. Just because I don't want them to go to court and claim you're picking on me. And my experiences in court were not ones that encouraged me to don't go there anyway if I could avoid it.
Yeah.
I think we're after compliance, not necessarily punishment, so.
Well, that's another reason why we don't wanna do citations either, cause what all the citation fee goes to the court system and the general fund and different
Yeah.
things, right? Okay,
So the courthouse section goes to the courts. And then there's a couple surcharges based on the base fine amount. That also goes to various parts of the courts. But the actual fine amount comes back to the county in some measure. I don't know exactly which.
To the general fund,
account it goes
probably.
to, Probably, but when we actually do get a fine, the base fine amount comes to the county. Now, 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna raise the support cost for instance, if there's working with the agreement. Otherwise, the base fine amount is. And then court costs about that. Yep, the court cost.
That's where you get the 389.50.
So the court cost for about $200 fine is $189.50. For the surcharges, so just stuff.
That's why we just like doing permitting, because then the revenue, partially doesn't go to the court system.
Yeah. it
Cause then
helps
some
us
of it
to-
goes to the jail, and does the state get a portion of it, or?
Yes, the
Something.
state court system portion of it,
Yeah.
some of it goes to jail and probation fees, some of it goes to the court systems. Some of it goes to funding the costs of court personnel. Some of it goes to the victim witness program. It's very interesting for these violations.
Another thing that the owner turns themselves in, we do regular permit fees, so, we've had it before where somebody goes, oh yeah, I talked to my neighbor and. Yep, they told me I should have got a permit to build this item, they come in, yep, here's my permit, okay, yep, it's regular fee, you turned yourself in. We didn't have to send you a letter,
Yeah, we haven't invested
Yep.
resources in
Yep,
compliance,
so you
so
just pay the regular rate
give
for
them the
that,
benefit of the doubt.
yep. So then after, we've talked about letters and how much, so then, after that time frame, we would issue a citation. First citation, we usually just do the 1 day, the 389.50. And then we want the correction of the violation, so,
What's
now-
the timeframe for- and that's where it depends.
well, we
Time
would
of
talk
year.
to Stephanie, me, what's the violation, what time of year is it, when can they probably get something done? And then,
If they want to, negotiate or work with me, I have a conversation with the person about what are their needs and concerns of being able to correct the violation. What are our needs and requirements? I did a 13-month agreement where they did 13 months to fix the violations, and if they did that, it would be reduced to court costs. And if they didn't, they get the whole fine amount. So I give within reason, it's not gonna be years and years and years, but whatever they think they need, and I ask, okay, is this realistic? Is there a plan? Do you think you're gonna be able to do this? Or do you need more time? Do you know what you need to do? So I do work with the individuals about what their particular situations are to try to resolve them.
Can I ask her, do you enforce that then? Like, do you follow up on your part, on your end then?
It gets written into a court document, so it doesn't get followed up on. It's a signed written agreement that's enforced by both parties.
so that's the first citation, so then we have some here, where we issued a citation, and never got compliance. Then we issue a second citation. I think the last couple, we've asked for the court for a 5-day citation for that, so the second one. And we have 1 or 2 out there that have not complied after the second citation. So it's like, what do you wanna do then? And, we got Stephanie here to, say what our options are, but, it's, a lot of the people, the violation letter resolves the issue. Then you're always gonna have a few that you gotta give them a citation. Then that resolves the majority of them, but then you have these few outliers where they're like, it doesn't seem like anything you do helps.
I think the goal with going up to 5 citations is, that should be something concerning when you see that, that's like, oh my goodness. maybe that prompts a communication and dialogue and a resolution. But then if you've done that, you still haven't gotten any outcome. You know, that's when we look at, do we file something with complaint? Do we try to look into whether or not the court can issue different types of orders with regards to remediation of the issue? And is that even something we want to do? If we get to the remediation of the issue orders, theoretically, the court could take whatever action they make and whatever action they have available in terms of somebody disobeying the order. That's not necessarily something that either Jason or I feel comfortable encouraging or pursuing, but if we do a summons of complaint and then get a judgment that they violated the ordinance, and then get a judgment that the person is to fix the issue, and then the person doesn't fix the issue, the court could begin a contempt process. And we've never gone that far. We've never contemplated going that far, but it is, I suppose, a theoretical possibility that we certainly hope we never even have to think about.
I can tell you that, for various reasons we don't need to get into, that was a common practice for a while in Washburn County. Summons and complaint, because citations being dismissed all the time. But that's just, we're not gonna go into that discussion as why that happened. That was after me, by the way.
What is the means, I mean, if someone doesn't pay, I mean, can it be attached to their tax bill? That's a separate thing. I mean, is there anything that makes it more serious?
So once there's a judgment through the court, so once the citation, a finding of guilt, or an entry of a judgment saying that you owe $389. They get a letter saying you have, I believe, usually it's 60 days, but sometimes judge sets a different time frame depending on the particular circumstances. Usually you have about 60 days to pay or set up a payment plan. And if you contact the clerk's office during that time, set up a payment plan, make a payment, communicate, I can pay on this date, you're peachy keen in terms of enforcement actions. If you don't respond, the clerk of courts and the court system has a few enforcement options. There can be sent to a debt collector. It could be judgments or liens could be applied to properties. In criminal cases, they can be issued a warrant for non-payment, but that doesn't occur in the zoning cases for a variety of reasons. One is that law enforcement needs certain information to be able to have an arrest warrant that we don't collect and provide in these cases. You know, we don't get driver's license numbers, we don't get physical descriptions, and include that in court documents. Mostly what happens is sent to a debt collector and maybe a judgment, but usually just sent to the debt collector.
I would assume that's quite rare. I mean, it sounds like they have every opportunity and you work with them. I mean, like.
There's a few out there that have.
I've done maybe a dozen tickets since I've been citation, I've been here. And most people pay their citation. A lot of people will, say the citation letter, will just pay it instead of communicating with me and we work something out. And then a few people, we get through the whole court process agreement. Sometimes they have a hard time paying. The people who we usually don't see payment on are the people who acknowledge the citation and then choose not to attend court or reach an agreement or try to reach an agreement with me. And then they don't pay after they didn't participate in the court process or the negotiation process. But again, that's only 2 or 3 of the 12 or 13 that I've seen so far.
Yeah, it's not that there's a lot
Mm-mm.
anyway, regardless, it's just the process. And, you know, if you had some really terrible egregious violation that was sitting there, started to do the day after day fine.
Well, without saying names, I will say we have one that they've given a 1-day citation, a 5-day citation. They have a house and we have no permit. We have no permit for a sewer. They've been living there for multiple years. No idea what's going on with any of their sewage or waste. Just ignore us.
That's the outlier.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, but the sewage and waste, that becomes a different issue.
Yeah, but I mean, then I gotta go get an inspection warrant from the court. I can't just go crawling around
No,
their property looking for things.
No, it's a process there. It's always protect the innocent, you know, but
Mhm.
it's what you have to do rarely, very rarely. Oh. Last question, what level of a violation requires enforcement? I think it has to be allowed the staff to make a decision. The last thing this committee wants to be doing is picking through who's gonna get a ticket and who isn't and why. You know, it would, I think that would be like having the public safety committee telling the sheriff her business. Albeit she's elected, it's different, but still.
One thing, I mean, could that be part of our report? Because if on a regular basis, we're seeing a certain, I mean, do we need to review an ordinance? You know, because, you know, if we have a report of violations, or would that be a pain or?
I think just the day-to-day violations, maybe not, but I think it wouldn't be inappropriate to get a report if we got something that's brewing trouble.
Oh, I could do like an end of the year, you know, summary or something maybe that, you know, so I wouldn't have to be doing it every month, running the totals,
It's
but
not super time consuming,
Yeah.
because I think that'd be an indicator of, it's like, do we have a problem with the ordinance? Do we have a problem with compliance? Do we have, I mean, just to keep it on our radar.
To an extent, you know, like, let's use conditional use permits for an example. If we have a conditional use permit, we always approve.
Chickens.
Why do we do it? Yeah, chickens, chickens, that's an example of, if we're gonna always approve them anyway, why do they conditional use, right? But on the other hand, if we have a consistent pattern of violations, but are, let's use sanitary for an example, which isn't the case here. Pretty easy to get a perk in Burnett County, but we're having lots and lots of illegal installations of septics. It may not be anything to do with the ordinance, but to do with other factors that, because they're too expensive, people think, or they, you know, up in the red clay plain of Lake Superior, that was a huge problem for Douglas County for a long time. People had all kinds of stuff that ultimately discharged the waters of the state, you know.
And I think some things are being resolved, you know, the staff had come up with, you know, the information that went into the tax bill, because I feel like we're seeing a lot of after the fact permits. I mean, because they're building things without a permit, and so things are being done to correct that. But I think if there's anything that can trigger, it's like, is there anything we can do to educate? Is there anything we can do? And I think that was a good example. It's like, you know, if we constantly see that people are doing, it's like, is there a way to get the information out there to let them know, hey.
Well, regarding conditional use permits, it's state law though, if a owner meets all the requirements of a conditional use permit, we must
Right.
approve it, correct?
Right, that's Act 67, yeah. Yeah, and the thing about Act 67 is it made it complicated in some ways because, you know, it's speculation is not part of it, right? The committee can't speculate what it might be. It's got to be based on substantial evidence, but courts have never really defined what that is. And I've pointed out on one occasion that both sides are speculating on a use that's never been there before. The public that's opposing it, testifying for all these reasons it's bad, and the applicant testifying for all its reasons it's good, but neither side knows. So that's why the reaction is to reduce conditional use permits. But that means eliminating them sometimes from districts where they would be contentious and creating a way to make it a permitted use in another zoning district. That's one way to do it. But we've done a lot of conditional use permits where as you know, the gravel pit we denied because we thought there was enough testimony in that one to deny it. They didn't appeal it, but it would have been interesting if they had, right? But they wouldn't accept the conditions the town was asking to be placed on it. And there was a strong enough reason for it to be denied. But it's conditional use permits. I mean, I kind of get it why Act 67 happened, because if a whole bunch of people signed up to be opposed, elected officials tend to decide with them and deny it without necessarily looking at if it was merit or not. All of us who used to do this a lot saw that happen. And so there was that you shouldn't offer a conditional use if you're never going to approve it. Or if you always approve it, why isn't it permitted use, right? That's the kind of things you try to take care of.
Yeah, and back to the Lincoln Township gravel pit, I mean, I found out later after we voted on it that there was quite a lot of discussion about the gravel pit at the town meeting, but the gravel pit people that were proposing it were not at the meeting. So that made it a little, tougher for me to make a decision on because I kind of felt they had been part of the program and they were not.
And that was an interesting one for a lot of reasons, and the result is if the town wants to take some action about that, now that we've made some amendments to the zoning ordinance, they could do some rezoning to some of the low density residential uses out there where a gravel pit's not a conditional use, and they would not have to worry about it. That's what Act 67 created, though, is a need to do those kinds of things, because I still think it limits local governments more than it ought to have. But I kind of get it at the same time as to what was happening in other places in the state that triggered it, what's happening here, Anyway, we could spend an hour on that. We don't need to do that.
Yeah, I just look at some of the conditional use permits. I mean, the ones in the past, I'd go through and look at all the letters and some for, some against, and so on and so forth. But some of the letters weren't even from folks that lived in the area, and they might have been like 5 years old.
We have petitions against stuff.
Yeah.
People from Bangladesh were signing the petition.
To that point where I'm thinking that if you're gonna submit a letter, maybe you should come here in person to testify about against it or whatever.
It's okay, but at least weigh in and be, you have a horse in a fight or a dog in a fight or whatever.
Sure.
By the way, we're okay, but staff should make these decisions, I think.
Now that you brought up conditional use, I guess one thing I'm not sure on is like, we talked about ordinance violations, but what about CUP violations and variance violations? It's like they agreed to something, they're not doing it. It's like, is there a fine or a revocation of the CUP? I mean, what is the process for those type of violations?
Typically follow the same process with a land use. Well, I mean, they're gonna get a letter or a communication.
Is there, what is the incentive to?
There is a provision to revoke a CUP. It would require a public hearing, but notice is sent back before this committee to do. But it is the nuclear option if it comes to that.
Well, I know,
Yeah.
but what is the other option other than revocation?
Well, that would be what ultimately we would do, is revoke it.
Okay, but.
That would be the end game, though. Normally, I would reach out to them and go, hey, you were supposed to do this as part of your CUP approval. A lot of times we work with them to get it done.
Do they generally comply? I mean, I'm just wondering, it's like, is there any incentive other than the nuclear one where it's like?
They generally comply because we put that little nugget in their brain. We're like, well, ultimately what could happen is we'd bring it back to the committee and the committee can either remove that condition that they put on there or revoke your permit.
Well, and more of my concern is probably a variance, which, that's something the Board of Adjustment does. But if in essence, their non-compliance, revoking the variance would mean tearing their house down. That's not gonna happen and a court's not gonna grant that. So is there any other action that's gonna make sure that they do what they were supposed to do? Because in all reality, no one's gonna make them tear down their $500,000 house.
Well, I guess we would probably ultimately at that, I would do the same process, though. I would reach out to them and say, hey, you were supposed to do this as part of your variance, you know, hopefully work with them. At that point, I guess, I don't know what we would, a variance condition that they don't do. I mean, if we do a citation, then that at least gets them in front of the judge if they show up.
It could certainly be some pushing for a best friend for orders and to do whatever the conditions are.
And it would make a difference that the BOE is a class of judicial body as well. So it'd be like violating a court condition.
Order almost.
Almost, and maybe a summons and complaint would be in order there.
Yeah.
You get a court order
Since
on
we,
one like that.
since we use that tool an awful lot for conditional uses and the Board of Adjustment for their variances, I would be interested in knowing, you know, what encouragement there is to comply other than a threat of revocation. I mean, that's the end game, but just wondering if there's anything in between there that would poke them to do what they're supposed to do.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, we'd start with a letter. So we'd poke as much as we can before we go to court. Ultimately, we don't wanna, I don't wanna go to court. I mean,
Heck, no, that's the last person. who does that.
everything goes so slow and drags on so slow once you get to court. It's like we do everything we can to try to
But they
avoid
know,
going
they
to
know
court.
that as well,
Yeah.
so they just assume this will just go away if I don't do
That's
it,
a method.
but they don't wanna get fined.
Definitely, that's a method of defense of some attorneys is to just keep dragging it out in court and hoping everybody gets bored and tired and goes away. Right?
If the goal is, I mean, otherwise there's not really doing that if there isn't a means to get them to do it.
Anyway, I think if we finish with this one, I think we've all pretty much come to an understanding of what the process is for enforcement. Do we need to do anything with it to now?
And this is very helpful.
I'd like to entertain a motion to accept it as presented and we'll continue. It's always going to be a point of discussion. Anytime we want to talk about it, but I think as far as a bit of a policy that's been enumerated, we now have something in writing.
I'll make a motion to accept.
There's question marks in the document though, so I don't know if we can accept something that asks questions.
Well, I thought we had addressed those and came to a consensus. I didn't think we needed to vote on each one of those things.
We want Jason just to clean this up, given today's discussion, and then vote on it in December.
We'll do that too. Okay, let's do that. I'm fine with that.
I remove my motion.
Yeah. Take any questions out of it.
And then we have just a couple to do things, I mean, like Stephanie had a couple things she was gonna answer and I can't even remember, Jason probably got it down what I asked.
Yeah, but, okay,
Well, that's why we record the meetings too, so we can go back afterwards and be like, what exactly, was the wording of that specific thing? Yeah.
let's move along then. Are we gonna do the beacon thing today or we're gonna put that off to next month?
Whatever, you can do it next month, I guess. I put it last because I thought, I didn't know how late we'd be going and how long people wanted to stay.
The reason I say I myself would have to excuse myself, so if we finish the agenda and if you wanna do it for everybody else.
I would make a motion to move it to December.
Okay. Let's amend the agenda to add that back to the December meeting, which won't be real busy either, right?
We only got one.
Yeah, there's only one thing, yeah. And then we'll have this enforcement discussion again or whatever with
Final,
cleaned up.
just review the final
Yeah,
document.
cleaned up. That would be an agenda too.
Yep.
Well, I might have our floodplain ordinance on for just not for public hearing. We have to amend our floodplain ordinance and you know, it's finally getting winter, that's when we start working on some of these other things, so.
Slow down enough.
They've been kind of bugging me for the last 6 months to get going on it, so. Might have a draft of that for you guys to work into, but, yes. So staff reports are in there, what people have been working on.
We had a lot more dwellings than last year,
Mhm.
20% more.
And, you know, I mean, there's a lot of building going on in Voyager. You know, there's a couple builders that are building, I guess, what we would call beginners or
Cottages.
a beginner home buyer price point, I guess. You know, they're kind of in that $250,000 range. Seems like those are pretty popular. They're building quite a bit of those. That's probably most of the difference. Is what I'm thinking, because,
Well, and even in the whole area, I know for sure that the golf course is breaking records this year. You know,
Oh.
golf that we've ever had.
Good.
I mean, people in the area, that's for sure.
yeah, other than that, you know, there's nothing else out of the ordinary going on.
You gotta remember to put that in the committee report, because then Peterson always wants to know that number, and I forget. I looked at, oh, he'll be surprised. So. Future agenda items, nothing special coming up.
No, so we'd have this enforcement policy, there's a CUP, we'll have the Beacon GIS website, and then maybe I'll have the floodplain ordinance to just review.
Yeah,
Not sure yet.
floodplain review is tentative if we have it.
Yeah,
But no, probably plenty of reason to have a meeting. So. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Supervisor Moyer, second by Supervisor. Okay. All in favor, aye. We're done.
Well, now I should be able to make it through.
I have a plumber schedule, so I've looked at my water heater that I need to replace. If he said he can come to